Living in an ableist society, autistic folk are often marginalized. But to suffer the same at the hands of another autistic, not an experience most of us expect. Online, however, this has become a common experience. Imagine being a young autistic person with few friends. You're desperate to find your community. You start posting on autism-related social media accounts and connecting with fellow autistics. Then, from out of nowhere, a total stranger blasts you for identifying yourself using the wrong terminology. And just as suddenly, your newfound sense of belonging and acceptance collapses. This was my experience, and one I believe is shared by many. The fact that some people feel the need to police the autistic identity is one I think begs further discussion. The people responsible for this behavior, I'm going to call them gatekeepers, have a tendency to treat our community as monolithic. Gatekeepers claim that our community endorses only one worldview, their own, while criticizing anyone who refuses to fall in line. Knowing that one can be punished for speaking out of turn creates a chilling effect on online discussions. And so it's the voices of these gatekeepers that usually end up being the loudest, to the exclusion of all others. I want to make it clear that many advocates within the autism community do important work. I'd like to believe that most of them are motivated by genuine compassion. And yet, the gatekeeping approach to advocacy raises a number of concerns, some of which I'll touch upon shortly. Full disclosure, I'm speaking today as someone who is autistic. I acknowledge that my ability to speak out in the first place is a privilege, and not everyone in our community enjoys this privilege. Any opinions I share here are entirely my own. I want to begin by acknowledging that autistic folk as a group have been marginalized and oppressed throughout history. Widespread ableism means that the status quo largely exists to serve the interests of neurotypicals. This is why challenging the status quo and fighting for autistic empowerment are so important. That said, I believe gatekeeping is largely unproductive. Why? It's usually dogmatic, if not militant. Gatekeepers appoint themselves the authority, defining what is good and bad, right and wrong for everyone. Typically, they take a very strong stand on hot-button topics, like the use of person-first language, the term Asperger, or the pathologizing of autism as a disorder. And yet, discussion can't happen so long as one party feels that they have a monopoly on the truth, as gatekeepers so often do. Believing in their own righteousness, many gatekeepers will label those who disagree with them as ignorant, ableist, and oppressive. Demonizing people in this fashion creates shame. In the words of Brené Brown, shame is the fear of disconnection. It's the fear that something we've done or failed to do, an ideal that we've not lived up to, or a goal that we've not accomplished, makes us unworthy of connection. I'm not worthy or good enough for love, belonging, or connection. Nobody likes to feel this way. Everyone, and I mean everyone, wants to feel worthy of love and belonging. Worse still, as potential changemakers, when we shame others, we undermine their capacity for change. Shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we can change and do better. In fact, shame is much more likely to be the cause of destructive and hurtful behaviors than it is to be the solution. There is a history of neurotypicals weaponizing shame against autistic folk. So when autistic folk do the same to neurotypicals and to other autistics, it is, to say the very least, problematic. Gatekeepers claim there is a consensus within the autism community, one which again usually aligns with their personal beliefs. In fact, no such consensus exists. The community comprises diverse individuals who identify and express themselves in a variety of ways. No one has the right to speak for every member, just as no one has the right to silence those who don't agree with their point of view. One example of this is when gatekeepers whitewash autism, painting it exclusively as a positive, while failing to acknowledge that it may be experienced by others as a negative. Likewise, many gatekeepers frame autism as a mere social challenge caused by systemic ableism. This social model of autism has been adopted as an alternative to the medical model, which in many cases has been used to oppress autistic people. But when you romanticize autism in this fashion, you are dismissing the reality of those individuals who experience autism as a debilitating disability. And gatekeepers who insist that autism is an intrinsic part of our identity fail to admit that not everyone feels this way. By dominating discussions about autism, gatekeepers fail to hold a space for other community members, and even compromise their right to self-expression. What many gatekeepers don't realize is that the ability to advocate is a privilege, and not all autistics get to enjoy that privilege. Many individuals on the spectrum experience some form of intellectual disability and/or are nonverbal. These folk may not always have the opportunity to express how they feel, and so their wishes go unheard and their needs unmet. If our priority as a community is the inclusion of all autistic individuals, why then are many of us assuming the right to speak for them? Again, by virtue of being the loudest, gatekeepers get to decide what issues receive the most attention. Many, unfortunately, privilege their own voices, rather than elevating those of the underprivileged. The final issue I want to address is the us versus them attitude many gatekeepers take towards the medical community and parents of autistic folk. Autism has a very dark history where it comes to the medical establishment. Just look at how the Nazi regime treated neurodiverse individuals. It's no wonder why suspicion of medical authorities endures even today. Still, this sweeping narrative by gatekeepers claiming that all researchers want to cure autism, an action they compare to eugenics, is really a smear campaign. Consider those autistic individuals living in full-time care, who are prone to frequent seizures, to meltdowns, self-injury, and violence. Their experience of autism differs vastly from that of privileged gatekeepers. Many researchers are working to enhance quality of life for these folk, and yet gatekeepers continue to accuse them of endorsing ableism. And then there's the often desperate parents of autistic folk reaching out to the community, seeking understanding, insight, and support. But more often than not, they are shut down and declared the enemy. Rather than building coalitions with community allies, gatekeepers sideline them. Gatekeepers believe themselves to be part of a social justice movement. But so long as one is assuming the moral high ground, dominating the discourse, and bullying both allies and autistics alike, there can be no justice. I gave up my previous career to enter social work with the hope of serving my community. Yet I'm troubled by the knowledge that should I ever fail to measure up to the demands of autism gatekeepers, I'll be subjected to immediate judgment and shame. This leads me to wonder, are these individuals truly invested in serving the autism community? Or are they only perpetuating the trauma that was done to them? Have you experienced some form of autism gatekeeping? Or do you completely disagree with my thesis? If so, sound off in the comments. I know this is a challenging topic. Whatever your point of view, all I ask is that we keep it civil. I put a lot of thought into this video. You can share your appreciation with a like by hitting the notification bell and subscribing. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.